Hi everyone, Michelle Ferreri here, Member of Parliament for Peterborough-Kawartha, and thank you so much for joining us for this edition of People Before Politics. Now, if you've never watched this before, the premise and the idea behind this was for you to get to know the people before the politics. I actually was recently at Halifax Police. We were doing a study on human trafficking with our Status of Women Committee. And we were going around the table, and one of the officers was asked a question about murdered and missing Indigenous women. And she answered this, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's exactly the kind of same principle I had when I wanted to start this podcast or Facebook show or YouTube or however it is you're streaming it. And she said, I'm a person before I'm a police officer. And it's the same kind of concept when we look at elected officials. People are people, and their lived experiences shape who they are, it shapes what they believe in, and it shapes what they fight for. And so each week when we're sitting in the House of Commons, we bring this show to you. And if you haven't watched them all, please do. Everybody has such a unique story in what they bring in their lived experience. So today I'm very excited about Member of Parliament Eric Duncan. Woo! And the studio audience goes wild. Eric Duncan was elected Member of Parliament for Stormont-Dundas-South, Glengarry. Just a nice, easy riding to say there.
Eastern Ontario, Cornwall area. That's the way I try to...
That's so great. October 2019, you were elected. Now, Eric was wonderful. When I first decided to run for politics, Eric was who I gravitated to in terms of my sort of style, mentorship, how you communicated to your constituents, your customer service approach. Like everything you do was to serve. And I loved that, like working for the people. So he's been really influential to me. He is probably one of the most loved members of caucus. Everybody loves Eric. And he does so much for our team to build us, to bring us together, to go out and do outreach with everybody. But you have a great story. You were elected when you were 22 years old.
I got broken gently, I tell people. So I actually got started as a councillor at the age of 18 and then a mayor at the age of 22 in my hometown, the Winchester-Chesterville area, township of North Dundas. And so that was a great experience for me. I've always teased at the federal level that everybody should try municipal politics before they come to federal politics. It is the front line of government services. So from the water people turn on if they're on well and water and sewer in a village, to making sure the roads are cleared or don't have potholes, to arenas, to landfills and waste collection. It's the front line of service that impact everybody's day-to-day life. So it was awesome to have that experience, and then to have it as a teenager, and then a mayor at 22, and a regional chair of the SD&G counties as warden at 25. Like I said, got broken gently.
It's unbelievable, right? And a lot of people still, by no fault of their own, I do think we maybe teach civics a little early to kids, to be honest. But I know I see most people don't really know the different levels of government. And so they're often phoning our office asking about a municipal issue or a provincial issue or a federal issue. And there are these kind of three tiers and they bleed together. But knowing how they work makes you so much better. Like the stuff we deal with, that's why he's like, there's not a question I could ask Eric right now and he'd be like this, and this. And he's just so knowledgeable and great about it. But I want to go back. I want to talk about like sort of how you grew up. I know you were a family business, right? So trucking?
That's right. Grew up in a trucking yard. Small town of South Mountain. I call it the suburbs of South Mountain, population 300. And then the weekend of the South Mountain Fair, about 10,000 people. But yeah, small town, Eastern Ontario. Hardworking parents, had small business. My dad started from scratch and built up with his own truck. Got a second truck, and he and my mom started a trucking business that grew to 40, 45 trucks. And my dad just retired last year, well deserved. And the last couple of years, he was named one of Canada's best managed companies, which was a huge honor.
Wow, so, congratulations, Dad.
My parents have been very inspiring to me and people I look up to.
You have a great sense of family. When Eric came recently to Peterborough and met with our local EDA and Conservative members, and you were telling me this, I hope it's okay that I tell this story, but how well you come from a blended family too, and how well everybody gets along and respecting each other. And you have 5 stepsisters?
I have 5 steps. So people ask me where I get my thick skin in politics. It's having 1 sister and 5 stepsisters. But yeah, we've had a blended family. Both my parents remarried. They separated and divorced when I was finishing high school, my sister and I. Jill's 2 years younger than I am. And that was tough on us. But I think one of the things that came out of it, both mom and dad are remarried. My stepmom, Francine, and my stepdad, Gary, and our siblings, yeah, we are very close as a family. It's a small town, and everybody knows everybody, and we're still connected and see each other around at community events. And even in my role in politics, of all my campaigns as mayor and now as MP, both sides of my family are involved. They're at all my events. They are the core of my sign team and office team, and we have events. They're the first ones there, folding and stuffing letters and helping out. And that's really helped as well. I think families are changing in their style and composition and their size and how that works. And I've just been very blessed. My parents are amazing. My step-parents are amazing. And a key to success, I find, in politics, no matter what level you serve at, it's having a supportive family. And I mean that in terms of the encouragement. They also tell you where to smarten up when you need to as well.
That shirt looks terrible on you, Michelle. Don't wear that again. Yeah.
And I tell people, I joke in the riding, I have a group of second mothers that will go and do exactly that, but that are there for support and encouragement, give advice when need be as well. But also because you're away a lot. And I'm lucky. In Eastern Ontario, you have a longer drive than I do. But my commute to Ottawa is an hour and 10 minutes. I'm single that way and don't have a family, immediate family per se, in my home. But the impact that this job can have on families, you've got to have the supportive family. It's an all-in approach on every MP and their family. So I've been very blessed with my mom and dad and siblings that I couldn't ask for better supports.
You're so right. You know, I was saying at the beginning, I traveled, we went on a tour for human trafficking, and I am really fortunate. It's a 3-hour drive from Peterborough to Ottawa, but these MPs that are in like northern British Columbia, and they have to fly through time zones, and it is a lot. And so having people to sort of watch your house or have your, like, all of a sudden it's like the village, right? So yeah. I think that's really powerfully said. Okay, so Eric, why conservative?
So it's interesting. People always ask about interest in politics and then why conservative. And my parents, growing up, small business owners, my parents are also very involved in the community. They voted in every election, small c conservative. They take a lawn sign for the local candidate. My dad is a business owner, would donate to campaigns here or there. But my aunt was the only one that, Aunt Annette was the only one that really put her name on a ballot. But I saw my interest in politics, first of all, come from my parents' community involvement. So again, at municipal politics and what we do now, it's community building, trying to help the area, be a voice now in case of Ottawa, but local issues and problem solving, case management, and all of that. Where the conservative part came from for me is, I say, personal responsibility, of where there's a role for government to have, but there's also a role for the individual that you can determine your own success as well. The harder you work, the more you do, the better chances and odds of you being successful and having a even better quality of life. So to me, it was where, yes, you need to have, there's a role for government, there's also a role for you. And I always say, too, that there's only so much the government can do. I volunteer a lot in the community as an example, and if it's a fundraiser or dollars raised is one thing, but people stepping up in their own ways for the betterment of their community. So to me, that's where I always came from, that angle that way. And then it's a whole of government approach. I'm very, as you know, very nerdy and very technical. Technocrat would be the term.
I can call him a nerd, because he calls himself a nerd.
And going back as a mayor on municipal budgets and now, managing budgets, managing operations, change management, working smarter, not harder. So for me, as a fiscal conservative, what I love about our party is always that desire to kick higher. Not just necessarily going out like the Liberals have of raising taxes, spending more, a 35% increase in the public service. And we don't need the disaster that's there in terms of service levels and functionality. The Auditor General comes out constantly spending more money than ever before and getting less results. And what I love about our party and our approach is that just smarter, more effective, efficient government. Being able to manage change, kick higher, but look at how we can be more efficient and adapt to ways of where customer service is paramount, but small, efficient government is key as well. And so that's always just been mine from an economic perspective. And our party is a big tent. We are most successful when that tent is big. But I just absolutely love my experience as a staff member before and a volunteer, and now as a caucus member. I'm loving the energy that Pierre brings, but our team brings to what needs to happen, the change that needs to happen in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing to hear how people kind of shape what they find or determine as conservative and what kind of led them to that side of politics. One of the things that I remember finding out about you, and it's, I don't believe in identity politics, and I also don't believe one thing defines who we are, but there's still a lot of stigma around conservatives that were sort of these old white misogynistic racist men, clearly.
You're helping to change
that.
Yeah,
but and it's just kind of a label that unfortunately a lot of people love to slap on us. But you are gay, and it's like, okay, great, moving on, right? And that's sort of the conservative way, right? It's the same as when the women aspect. When I say yes, I'm a woman, but I don't need you to appoint me to a position. I will earn it. Thank you kindly.
100%. And so for me, where I came out publicly I was finishing up as mayor at the age of 29 or so in 2017, small rural town, small C conservative, church Christian community, and I made the decision I didn't need to come out, but I wanted to come out just to put it out there to acknowledge and not. I feel sometimes when people don't want to do that, people say, oh, well, maybe they're ashamed or embarrassed or don't think that they would be well received or respected. But I said, no, I wanted to do this and try to be an example for people. When I came out, I was hoping for indifference, that people would just not care, move on, and a lot did. And that's a good thing in a good way. It shows, when I came out, I always tell everybody, it was a big thing on Facebook. I did a coming out letter, and people called, and it was nice of where there was a lot of, doesn't matter, that's great. A lot of people told me their story about, somebody that they knew, and I always teased. They'd say, "Oh, do you know, Mark so and so? He's gay." And I said, "Wow, that's very stereotypical to say that."
Like
I would
when
know.
You're in Canada.
But
do you know Joe?
But I do know Mark, actually, in the small world of it. You kind of get chuckling. But everybody wanted to tell me about their connection. But the best part was the next morning after I did my coming out letter, somebody called to complain about a pothole, and I had a council meeting, and it went right back to normal. And it's a positive. So I've shared my story. I've had an incredible experience with my coming out. It's not been an issue, and it goes to show the progress that we've made as a country and as a society. Every person that shares their story opens new hearts and new minds, and that's what I feel has changed, that degree of separation. When people see themselves, and now it's been fantastic. I've done some work as an MP on the discriminatory blood ban, raising certain issues. I also think around the world.
Please tell people about that. This is amazing.
Well,
amazing.
And that's where you talk about lived experience of where when I was about 17 or 18 years old, I went to donate blood for the first time because my family had for years. I'd followed my mom and my aunt to go donate blood over the years. I thought the time's come, here we go. Now I knew I wasn't out at the time or anything, but it wasn't until I went through the survey where it asked if I was gay and asked those personal questions that I just became mortified at being disqualified simply because I was gay, my sexual orientation. And I've said I've had a very positive experience in my coming out story, and my work as an MP and work in the community has been fantastic and been no issue. But that day when I went through, I went through the process and pretended I put an anonymous sticker on the end, and that was one of the very few times in my life where I felt there was something wrong with me by being gay. When I knew that donation was getting into Canadian Blood Services, it was being thrown in the garbage simply because of my sexual orientation. So there were some colleagues when I got here, I didn't have that issue on the radar. I kind of put that in the back of my mind and moved ahead. But when I got here, realizing that those policies were outdated, there was no need for them based on the technology and the science advancements we had. This was something that I was able to go and ask questions of then the Health Minister, Patty Hyju, and the Liberals, of using my lived experience and story of calling it out and humanizing the context. And you talk in the beginning about the humanizing ourselves. That's some of the toughest things sometimes, where you have an issue that can be very technical, or people, what does it mean? You've got to put the human face or the human story behind that. And if we can use, through having more diversity in our caucus and in our party and in our our country, that does help, I think, get action on issues. So we were able to guilt the Liberals after it was like 6.5 years, and they said they were going to remove it. They finally did. The victory lap they took was pathetic, frankly. They could have done it much quicker and much easier with the science back behind them. But that was just an example of taking my lived experience and using it. And I'll tell you, and Michelle, we were saying too about the perception of the party, that is changing under Pierre. We are getting, I think the increasing diversity of our caucus and of candidates and members and volunteers is good, because when people see themselves reflected, we all have the same message of Pierre, the same priorities, the same goals. But when they see different faces and different folks make those messages, it opens up more eyes and ears. And so it's been a good success for us. We're going in the right, and I think we're having success because of that messaging and the different voices that are helping get that out.
And a lot of people don't know Pierre's dad is gay.
Yeah.
Like
the degrees
they don't
of separation.
Yeah, they don't know. And I think and I think we're our own worst enemy in a lot of ways, conservatives, because we're so pragmatic and we don't care. Like that's not what defines who Eric is. It's not what defines. I always say, I didn't choose that I was born, a woman. Don't give me accolades for something I had nothing to control. So I think sometimes conservatives are our own worst enemies because we don't go out and rah, rah, rah. We're just like, yeah, great, you're welcome. Who are you? Sit down, you're a human. Great, love to have you here. You're included. One of the things I hope for greatly one day is that no one ever has to come out.
Yep.
I remember saying that to my kids. I'm like, you know what? I just hope you get to bring home whoever you want to bring home. And that one day, right? 'Cause it's like heterosexual. I don't remember coming out telling my family I was a heterosexual, right? So we've made great strides, and I love that story. And your work on the blood ban is absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Eric, one of the things that you do incredibly well that I always admired, conflict is hard, right? When you are sort of a community builder, which you are, and you're involved in so many organizations. Like I think there's, I don't even know, 100 volunteer organizations you're a part of. But holding someone to account and being tough and standing in that House of Commons or going to bat and being a critic when you're in opposition, and yet still being compassionate and approachable. But you do it really, really well.
Well, and so I always joke of where in a democracy you need to have that system of the back and forth of holding the government to account, calling them out, calling out their failures, whereas a government very often you have the case where they're trying to paint a rosy picture that they've never had it so good or it's all so positive. A key part of our democracy, it's not kumbaya politics. If we all came along and got on the same page and all agreed and just went the same direction, like that's in China and North Korea. That's where we have that type thing, right?
But I think a lot of us, I think I came in a little bit like that, where I'm like, okay, we can just work that, but you have to have.
There's a role of a loyal opposition. So it is scrutinizing, it is asking those tough questions. And when they do fail, call out. Part of our key job as an opposition is to have those solutions. And that's where Pierre is very tough on the Liberals and the Prime Minister, rightfully so. And I think you have to take the shine off the armor a little bit to say, no, it's not as rosy. If we don't do that, Canadians won't understand the context of the problems. And I call it like Teflon politics. The Liberals have the best thing of where they can deflect crime issues. 32% increase in violent crime, 92%. Oh, it's the provinces and law enforcement. No, it's actually the bail reform that you passed federally in 2017 in your majority year that is causing this chaos now. And your solutions of C-21 to go after law-abiding. So you have to call them out and do all of that. The line that I use is attitude's a small thing that makes a big difference. And there's a wide variety of people in tones and angles and their style. And that's good. Every family, every workplace, everybody is different in terms of how they do that. Where at the end, as a Conservative team, we are all on the same page in terms of what our issues and our priorities are, what we need to do, how we communicate that, who we communicate it to. Everybody has different styles and ways of getting that message across. So I've always been one where, opposition is a challenge because going back to being a mayor, you're the head of the council table, you're making decisions, you can facilitate votes and get things done. As an opposition member, I always tease when we're out on tour speaking to Canadians, we don't have the checkbook, we got the megaphone. And so we've got to call out and amplify and sometimes, frankly, guilt the government into doing something or not doing something when it comes to legislation and government bills. So it's an adjustment, but I reject, there's a way and everybody has their own style. But I reject the idea that we come here to all get along. There's some issues that we can unify around that are good, but we need that in a functioning democracy, that back and forth and debate and using numbers and statistics and figures and contrast plans. That's what a democracy is. It's very, very key. So sometimes people don't like it. We have to have it, and it's a good thing. You got to look at the framework, and there's a tension, there will be, but that's democracy, and it's a good thing. I'll take the problems we have in our parliamentary system over nearly any other country in the world.
I love that you articulated all of that way. That was a big hill for me to learn. Like, that has been probably one of the biggest learning things for me, because it's uncomfortable. Conflict is uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable to watch. And so the public too is like, why are you guys fighting? Why can't you all get along? And I think that's hard for people to get, but it's like, I remember Pierre said this to me when I first started, and he said, Michelle, every time a minister goes to make a decision, that minister needs to think, what is my critic? What I have to make sure I've thought of everything. And that critic has to be right in the side so that you are making the best decision for the great amount of people. And that really stuck with me, because I think conflict is not always comfortable for people. And I think it's hard. Sometimes I think we just attack, but it's trying to create a balance in decision making.
Bring it full circle around talking about our families and the support of our families.
Well, that's where I was going with this, healthy relationships.
Well, and you go back of where it's necessary, of where, yes, you need to be, every good intentions and going forward, but family, they give you the encouragement, they'll give, okay, this is good, or, this might work, that type of thing. But also when you're not doing something and you're falling short, they do call it out in a way that builds at the end of the day
for your
better
best interests.
Agreed, and for our country's best interests. So again, there's a way of doing it. We have that role, and if we don't do it, I think we're not getting good government policy. We're not getting effective government policy in terms of what we do. So I agree that conflict is not always fun, but it's necessary, and it's part of a functioning democracy. Everybody, again, you go back on the style of how we do it, but it, at the end of the day, creates better people, better policies on this, and is absolutely necessary. It's not, there are some issues that are unifying, that we have some private members' bills that have all party support and so forth, how it goes, but it's that debate, and that conflict is the wrong word, that debate and discussion, holding to account, grilling, to making sure they're doing absolutely what they should do. There's nothing wrong with that. That is essential to, I think, a successful country and successful policy and budgets and what we do in spending. If we're not doing it, then people slack off, or in terms of efficiency, or that
it enables.
That enables, exactly. Or enables mediocrity or just status quo, which change management, doing better, kicking higher, you need that little fire under you. Ministers, governments need that fire under them. Otherwise, it's you're not getting the best product.
No, and that goes across as a parent too. That's a big piece of it. There's a very fine line between enabling and empathy, enabling and compassion, right? And having accountability and expectations.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to know about, is it Camp Aaron?
Yes.
Okay, so you do all these kinds of amazing work with all these kinds of organizations. What's Camp Aaron to you, and is that what you would say one of your favorites?
Yeah, it was a real personal moment of pride with a friend, Leanne Akers-Hanna, and I a few years ago. The pandemic has kind of thrown that off in terms of that program. But what it was I saw a documentary on HBO one time. Actually, Leanne had saw it and given me a copy of it, and it was a camp for children. A bereavement camp that have lost a parent or a child, sibling, or somebody. Could be cancer, could be suicide, could be any sort of accident, whatever it may be. And very often, particularly in rural areas, we lack that bereavement mental health support. So we founded Camp Aaron as a not-for-profit. We worked with a local organization that hosted a weekend every year of about 50, 60 kids, and at Rideau Hill Camp near Kemptville, a place where I went several times as a camper growing up. And we did that program for several years leading up to the pandemic, that brought in social workers and counselors and brought these children together for a weekend. And it was incredible just watching that experience for the first time, and then every year, the few years that we had operated that it's hard to talk to a child that has lost a parent or a sibling, what to say and what they feel. Have all those children together that can connect and relate and feel those same things and feel those same voids, but also know they're not in it alone, and having some coping strategies and bereavement strategies. Some incredible friendships were formed there between different families and children. And so that to me was a volunteer project. It was an after hours thing, and let's see if we can make this work. And since the pandemic, there's been a shift, but now since we brought the camp to Eastern Ontario, there's one in the process of being opened up in Montreal and some other areas. It was just, there was a gap in our community. The documentary kind of tugged at the heartstrings, like we've got to do something about this. And so to see that from idea to implementation and the hundreds of families that had come through for the few years was something that, was of all the different projects I've taken on, that was one that meant a lot and felt like making a difference.
You absolutely did. You absolutely did. I adore that, and I think the siblings, children are often left out. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, fun trivia before we wrap up, because I don't know what you do for fun, because all I ever see you do is work. I will touch on this really quickly too with Eric. One of the big pieces of what we do, I've said this before, we have basically two full-time jobs as MPs. We work here in Ottawa, holding the government to account on sort of a macro level. And then on a micro level, we work in our constituency offices, in our ridings, in our communities, where we serve all the people of our riding. And it doesn't matter which way you vote, you come to us with a concern of, EI, CRA, which, I mean, that's another conversation right now with the strike, but passports, all these things. So casework is what we call it. And Eric is just incredible in customer service and the value of casework. But I want to ask you before we wrap up, because I know we got to go, fun little things you do, because I don't know what you do for fun, because you're always either making a spreadsheet or an operation design or customer service standards. So do you have things that you do for fun, Eric Duncan?
Shows how nerdy I am. I'm thinking, okay, how nerdy am I going to make this? But so a few things. My family time with my parents and siblings and different things we do that way. If I can get away doing some road trips, I'm teasing and I'm going to chuckle. Politics obsessed between Canadian and American and local and is just doing weekend road trips where I can, and very often it's not weekends, it might be a couple of days during the week in the summer that I get away. So enjoy some of those smaller things that way. But one of my personal passions is volunteering. I find a lot of benefit to doing that. It's organizing my high school reunion this summer. It's working with local history groups of digitizing 100 and some years worth of newspapers in Cornwall and in SD&G counties. But it's to me, it's a part of where I get an energy from that, or I feel sometimes you struggle. I say, especially in opposition now, where you can get so frustrated at the lack of results on something the government's not doing that you want to see action on. Doing some of those personal passions.
In your constituency office.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we live and breathe that every day through the casework that we do. But trying to find, be involved in the community and find different ways, work with local legions to restore cenotaphs and tributes to veterans in our local communities. There's some of those extra things that I do that way. I try to read where I can, but I'm one of those ones too where I read some biographies if I'm away or have a couple of days, but I'm constantly reading news and articles and the latest
TV
things
shows?
that are going on. Crave. I don't have a satellite dish because I'm never home enough, but Crave and Netflix. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was a great series.
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
Yes, I have a first season, second season, I'm a bit way through, but I always say this, any TV I watch is a comedy. Like our job can be very, some of the very serious, tough issues to deal with. I don't want to go watch a murder show or about how trying to solve a murder. To me, it's like I want to, when I'm watching TV, I want to laugh. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one that comes right in front of mine. Ted Lasso, and I feel good that way too. Some serious moments in it.
A Man Called Otto. I don't know if you've watched that yet, but oh my gosh, it's Tom Hanks' new movie, and it's so good.
Parks and Rec was one. Just like Arrested Development is an oldie but a goodie that way. Is some great. So yeah, it's usually a Crave or Netflix and a series where I can binge watch a couple here and there if I get some downtime, but it's got to be comedy to make me laugh.
It's funny you say that, because I remember sitting and being like, when I first came in here, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and people were like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to wear tomorrow. I'm like, how can you talk about that? Like, we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. We have to fix, but it's like literally a coping mechanism, because you have to kind of have something outside of this weight of this. Okay, favorite food?
Poutine.
From anywhere in particular? Like just like plain or like bacon?
With curd. Plain poutine. You don't get anything fancy. A good gravy. Curd is the key on that with French fries. And it's like, I have my poutine tour around the riding of all the chip wagons and restaurants of knowing where they all are. And then I would say, For food, drink would be a Caesar. I'm a Caesar person everywhere I go.
Yes,
I've got to see not only what the Caesar is, but what the garnish is. Those are very keys, and that's the thing.
You had a really good one in Peterborough at 180.
That is, and the garnish. That's a perfect example. It was like a whole meal
there you
on
go.
top
Shout
of it.
out 180 in my writing. Thank you so much, Eric. If you ever want to get involved, volunteering is the best place to start, and it really does help everything on the ground. And I think if you're feeling frustrated, that is sort of an actionable item you can do today on the ground. Sometimes it doesn't always have to be money. It can be time. It can be, talking to your neighbors, starting conversation groups, hosting roundtables. Eric is our go-to when it comes to sort of organizing these events and overseeing volunteers and this ground movement of the people who are wanting change. So you can find Eric. What's your socials?
At Eric Duncan SDSG on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are the consistent ones, also on LinkedIn as well. Between those 4 platforms, they try to keep updated all the time and keep up the messages anyway.
Favorite part of the job?
I'd say the casework would be the one thing the local can stit stuff too, but I would say the pinch me moments. There's so many times in the chamber. President Biden's visit is an example. The first day when we were electing the speaker, there's a few times when you're walking up to the Hill, you're watching Pierre and the Prime Minister go back and forth, and you just pinch yourself that you're watching it later on the news and had a second row seat right over his shoulder to do that. So between the local stuff, never forgetting where you come from and the importance of keeping connected to who sent you here, but also taking in the opportunities you're given by being here. I'm blessed every day. There's never the same day twice, and that's the part that makes it fun. It's that never a dull day.
Final, what would be your biggest goal to accomplish when you look back at your time here?
To be, to feel a point of pride or success, to have a few things on local issues that way, but make a difference nationally, for us to form government and implement the change that we're talking about. Our country needs a new direction, it needs a new energy, it needs a revitalization when it comes to what the federal government does and how they do it. So I would love to wrap up a career here looking back to say, point to specific things of the differences that we've made, the changes we've made for the better in the country. So sometimes that depends on what your rules are when we get to the other side, not if, but when we get to the other side. But I take a lot of pride in the relationships I have within caucus and in our party. I love our party, I love our leader and the energy that we're having. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but to get to the other side and just leave the place feeling accomplished in whatever roles you're given is something that whenever the time comes, that's the end goal.
Now you know why I admire Eric Duncan so much. He is he's so inspiring. Thank you so much, Eric Duncan, Member of Parliament for Stormont-Dundas, Glengarry.
South Glengarry, but it's going to be, we're going to get rid of the South, it's going to become Glengarry. That is better than 9/10 of the people that try to do it. So we'll take that, Michelle. Thank you very much for having me in the studio. This has been awesome.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you share, like, and comment. And if you've missed any of the other episodes, they're on all the streams that you can watch and listen to. So thanks for joining us on this episode of People Before Politics.